for this meeting. And I want to be conscious of everybody's time and that the meeting will be here as a resource if folks are unable to attend. So welcome everybody. As we go ahead and get started, I just introduce myself, Barb Smith, Director of Partnerships and Professional Development for LDC. This is the monthly community meeting. You should have received an email and calendar invite to register. Our last meeting for the year will be the first Thursday in May, May 4th. If you are joining the meeting for the first time, we always provide a PowerPoint of resources. And then you have access to a meeting folder for all of the meetings for the last 2 years. We provide a summary of updates that provides a month-to-month executive summary of some items you may have missed. For example, this past month, there were some great blogs on national publications, one on Getting Smart and one in Ed Week, featuring the implementation of LDC. We also provide just notes on updates that you can turn around and share in your network so that you can have something quick that you can resource and share. This month's summary of updates has a lot of detailed information that I won't go into here, but would be happy to follow up and discuss with you if you have any questions. One of the things that we are super excited about is that you can now search by standard. We're going to be having communications going out about that, but in case you're doing any end of the year trainings, you may want to play with this. One thing you should be aware of is this means focus standards, which is going to be super useful. I'm already using it quite a bit to find great examples. The other thing you should be aware about that Rob reminds me is if I click a reading standard and a writing standard, what's going to pull up is a list of or. It'll have the reading or the writing standard. So what I tend to do is if I'm looking for an example to support teachers, I want to show something along the lines of close reading. I'm going to check just that standard, apply the filter. I can go by discipline and other things as well, as I normally do, to find the examples that I want. I'm probably going to want to get an exemplary or good-to-go example. And I may be wanting to focus in, for example, on a module. So this is, I think, going to be super useful for you. The other thing that I'm excited about is now being able, as we work to recognize teachers and also show our own accomplishments, as we earn badges, such as certified peer reviewer or course taker, for example, I'm able to print a certificate of my accomplishments. Here, maybe I need that for my district. It's just going to be a nice piece, again, for all of you who are conducting trainings. And we know that you're winding down and getting ready to gear up once again. So this summary of updates is just, again, chock full of small but significant enhancement. The other thing I want to mention is that peer review has just finished up, and super exciting to see good to go and exemplary modules from all around the country. 5 from Ohio, 6 from Colorado, 4 of them from Denver Public Schools, 1 from Dolores, 1 from Thompson, 1 from Kentucky. And what we often see is people that become good to go module authors want to shoot for exemplary. So there was one good to go module from IU13 that just became an exemplary module. So great crop of examples. You may want to really dig into some of those Denver ones because they really show how a district, all of us work with or work in school districts that have their own requirements that teachers need to meet. We want teachers to be able to use LDC to do their work, not do something different. So these modules are great examples of how teachers are embedding their SLOs, their local standards, their local requirements into the work. So just terrific. And before you know it, it'll be time to submit on the 29th, the next round. So we sure hope that you'll consider that and get the word out in your networks. I'm going to pull up our agenda, also in the meeting folder, along with the PowerPoint, any resources. Our goal is to give you resources that you can turn around and use. We try to crowdsource the best of what we're hearing about from the community each month. So please, if you have not presented or shared at a meeting, and have something to share, we sure would love to hear from you, because one of the reasons LDC formed as an organization was to prevent redundancies and together leverage opportunities so that we could scale and spread with more quality, more places, extend our reach. Also this month, as we work down through our agenda, I would just like to welcome Angela Bennett-Glock. She's going to talk a little bit next month, and some of you will be meeting her at the June Partners Convening. Angela is LDC's new Director of Business Development. So we're going to talk a little bit about how she and her role can be a support to your organizations. I'm going to turn it over and pull up the PowerPoint for Rob Kantner to talk a little bit about the long-awaited, finally here, in stages, scale student work rubrics. Many of you, I'm sure, noted the email that went out yesterday, the partner newsletter that we've been sending that gave you a sneak peek at all of this information. Turn it over to Rob, and I'll jump right
Great. So Barb, can you hear me okay? I.e., can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. Thank you. So hi, it's really nice to be with all of you virtually today. So as Barb noted, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to talk in a little bit more detail about something pretty awesome, the release of the new student work rubrics. Barb already noted that an initial email went out to partners about it. There's going to be more information to come that's going to be made available to all teachers, more information specifically for coaches and trainers. So there's more to come, but I'm just going to quickly introduce you to what the rubrics kind of look like and how they're functioning now. So as you know, our partners at Stanford Center for Assessment, Learning, and Equity Scale out here in California, they've been revising, getting your feedback, field testing these rubrics for quite some time. So since the first drafts of these rubrics were released to the community earlier this school year, it's been pretty great to hear how well received they've been. People like the idea that there's fewer dimensions, that there's clearer language, and a whole bunch of other things. But what's even more exciting is that Scale's field testing and their reliability studies have revealed that these rubrics are very reliable, and they're very good to use with LDC teaching tasks while still being a lot easier and more flexible than the previous iterations. So you can see on the screen right now just a quick snapshot of what a couple of the rubrics and pieces of the rubrics look like. You can find these at ldc.org/resources. Go ahead and change the slide bar. So under our resource section of the website is where you can find them. You can find them in PDF, Word, and in Google Docs formats here right now. And that's worth highlighting for a moment that they're available in both Word and Google Doc versions, because you're going to see that the disciplinary content understanding dimension is a lot different now. It's much more flexible, which means teachers are going to want to be able to modify the criteria that they're using in that dimension. So often we expect that what a teacher is going to want to do is pull in the right content understanding dimension for their specific teaching task, and then print off their rubric and go to it and go start scoring student work. So you'll be able to find all of those here, what's available now under our resources section. Go ahead and change the slide. I just want to briefly summarize for you the features of these rubrics, what's new about them, and what's currently available, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what's still to come. So first of all, the rubrics that have been released so far are the argumentation and informational explanatory rubrics for grades 6 through 8 and for grades 9 through 12. So I know that that leaves an enormous and very important gap, which is K through 5, which we'll talk about in a moment, but those are coming soon. So all these rubrics, as I noted, have been extensively field testing and revised several times to show this high degree of reliability, and we'll release more information about that soon. But really quick hits about these new features in the rubric. So first of all, the language is much clearer and more concise. Makes it a lot easier for a teacher to know what they're looking for in the student work to help them score. This next piece is really important, which is narrower grade ranges, right? So there's rubrics now specific for 6 through 8 and 9 through 12 at the secondary level, whereas before they were 6 through 12, which didn't allow the language to be as precise to the grade level standards and expectations. And you'll see the same thing when we do release the K through 5. It'll very likely be divided up between K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. Hugely important is the reduction in the number of scoring dimensions. The traditional LDC student work rubrics had 7 dimensions. Now there's just 5. For example, teachers will certainly notice that the focus dimension has been taken away as its own independent dimension after years of work finding from the field and from scale studies that they could better subsume that criteria within other dimensions. There is this new optional dimension for additional demands. So if a teacher adds demands to the core part of their teaching task, we have found that it helps them to score that separately if they have added one of those. So they can score the student work very clearly based on the core teaching task separate from any of those demands. And the last piece, which is probably the most exciting, is there's now so much more flexibility. There's going to be menus of options available for teachers to pick from for that disciplinary content understanding dimension in the rubric. So in the past, it's been a generic content understanding dimension that teachers have noted doesn't really help them score their students very precisely. They don't know what to look for or how to score it. So far, what has been released is the science, next generation science standards menu of options for content understanding. There's like 15 or 16 different options to choose from there. Most of them are based on the NGSS practices. And then there is also an option of scoring based on a content standard. You can just choose a very precise content standard and score against that. So we are also making available right now the traditional content understanding dimension that's been on the old rubrics for any other discipline aside from science. But teachers outside of the science discipline can also use a standards-based content scoring dimension as well, while we await more options to come for these additional dimensions. So let's talk about that now in our last slide, which is what's still to come, because I'm sure folks are excited about the science piece and about the secondary piece. There's still much more to come. So the elementary grade ranges will be coming very soon, hopefully by the end of this month, and we will communicate that to the community. The next set of disciplinary content understanding dimensions that we expect to be available will be for history and social studies. Those will be based off of the C3 standards. So look for those to be released soon as well. And very soon, hopefully in the next week or two, we will have more detailed information to provide for teachers and coaches and trainers, just the rationale for the changes to these rubrics from scale, as well as samples of scored student work using these new rubrics. And a big shout out to the folks out there at CEI in Colorado who were part of the most recent round of reliability studies and this field testing, because a lot of the scoring that was done with these rubrics using teachers out there. So some of that student work will be available for folks to look at. And hopefully as soon as possible, some of it might not be until later into this summer, but core tools will be updated to support the use of these rubrics. We'll probably get the rubrics into core tools more quickly than that. But eventually what we want to be able to have happen is a teacher can go into core tools, they create a science argumentation teaching task, and then they can add in core tools that specific content understanding dimension from the menu of options. So we'll be updating everybody on that as that comes along. And we also expect to provide some guidance and some support for using these new rubrics in core tools, in our professional learning experiences, some more to come on that as well. So would love to hear any feedback we get as you and your teachers out there start using these. So I think that is all I have to update everybody on. So just want to thank you all again for your patience and for the feedback that's contributed to the creation of these awesome new rubrics.
Thanks, Rob. We have a number of experienced people here on the call. How do you get changes like this out? I know that you'll be updating, training materials for next year, but what are some of the ways you share this information out in your networks? And besides PD, updating PD, how's it an opportunity to re-engage people maybe?
Hi, Barb. This is Kelly. I see this as a huge opportunity to bring people back into the loop. I've sort of been waiting for these to come out and curious about how they were going to look in the end. I think certainly there's a lot of professional development that will go with them, especially for selections of those additional rows for content understanding and choosing the standards and evaluating them. But I think it's for teachers who maybe went through training 5 years ago, 4 years ago with us, it's a great way to kind of check back in with them and see where they are, and just help them make sure they're updated with what's going on with LDC. So I think it's awesome.
Thank you, Kelly. I was thinking, kind of along those lines, like I'd be pulling out my cohort list, folks that if I'm not speaking with them regularly, especially I think some of those year 1 or year 2 science teachers. For example, already today, the email just went out and already, get an email for science from related to the science and folks saying, hey, okay, and when's elementary coming? So a lot of excitement. Any other thoughts?
I agree with Kelly, and hello, Kelly, long time no see. I know a DC teacher who he's the head of his social studies department. He had his whole department adopt, I guess, with the 2.0 LDC rubric. So on the one hand, he might be pissed because now he's going to have to get them to re-adopt something. But I think he'll be excited to see, the updated version, and especially excited when the history social studies one comes down the pipe.
Well, I was just thinking, Cosby, you've just done with a large scale implementation that you're doing. This is a good timing in terms of scoring student work. Being able to try some of these with some of the papers you're collecting as well. Very cool.
Absolutely. Probably after this call, I got to send an email out to my the teachers in my program and gather up some student work, especially as we're at the end of the marking period here.
One of the things we did hear from the field test groups was that the science teachers who use the new rows that are science specific, I mean, of course, there's a little bit of learning curve in terms of deciding how to manipulate those because there's several choices that haven't been there before, but they really, really like the specificity around the content. It felt really, really relevant and really helpful for them in their scoring. Yeah, that's what Rob is just putting in the chat. But yeah, so we have gotten that already back. So we'll be excited to hear how your content area teachers experience that difference in those rows.
And Susanna, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'd like to frame it for everybody. I've asked Suzanne and Christine Del Negro from Generation Ready, who's deeply experienced with literacy coaching and coaching in the New York I3 implementation, which is largely virtual coaching, and Sherry Blankenship from Rankin County, who is working with SREB in a course pilot, to talk a little bit about the LDC coach course takeaways. Like, they've really discovered some interesting things and have been learning a lot as everyone's, again, thinking about their service models, knowing that more and more 10 days out of the classroom, 8 days out of the classroom, that kind of a model is not sustainable and scalable. So folks are really looking at how to shift their professional development models in a way that's collaborative, really promotes teacher learning. And one of the things we at LDC really learned last year was we needed to think about coach learning. We jumped right away to teacher learning and what that was going to look like in a blended model, but we needed to think more about supporting coaches and coach learning to do this kind of work. So I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint and turn it over to Suzanne, who, and these two women who have Thursday night have been hanging out together.
It's true. Am I muted? I'm not, I don't think I'm muted. Am I muted?
I can hear you just fine.
All right. So we've been running a pilot really of how to think about coaching virtually in the LDC space. As you know, our I3 implementation that we have 2 partners working on is a virtual coaching model. So we've been really thinking deeply about what virtual coaching looks like in LDC and how to do it and how to support coaches in using virtual mechanisms to coach their teachers. So we've been running a pilot with coaches across the country who have completed our course 1, which is essentially our the teaching task course, how to craft an LDC teaching task. We had 2 purposes in the course. One was to sort of review the core content that's available in that online course. And the second was to discuss ways that coaches could use some of that content in their coaching. And part of that also was how to use different virtual mechanisms to support that coaching work. So the structure, just so you know, it's an 8-week course that's taking place over a 10-week period. We had spring break in there. We had a weekly synchronous PLC, and we had weekly asynchronous homework where we all reviewed core content from the courses. We posted in discussion boards, been working on teaching tasks and revising those. And then there were really established protocols for both the homework portions and the PLC discussion portions. So I just wanted to share a little bit of what we are thinking about, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sherry and Christine, who can actually talk about what it's like. We know that in the LDC ecosystem, people are coaching in different ways, and this is kind of a breakdown of some of the different touch points that we see being part of LDC coaching. Online professional learning experiences are becoming more and more common. We know that a lot of the LDC coaching takes place asynchronously, and that's when coaches are giving feedback on modules, giving feedback on teaching tasks, all the things that they do on the teacher work side. We know that obviously there's some synchronous virtual learning. So for example, the PLCs that we have in I3, which are they're live, everyone's together like we are now, but they're through a platform like a Zoom or something. Obviously there's in-person school visits that people are doing, and then of course there's kind of institute workshop or summer kind of models that happen. So in trying to figure out how to bridge all of these different touch points, we have been talking, and with the coaches, all of us have been talking about, like, what is the coaching data that helps capture the kind of coaching work you do in LDC, especially since so much of it is asynchronous feedback on teacher work. How can we really capture and think about what you're doing, and how can coaches have indicators early on in their work that help them figure out whether they're being successful as coaches? So we looked at a lot of different data. Here's a list of all the different types of things that we've been looking at and thinking about. And if you go to the next slide, we can show you some data of different coaches, not specifically from this course actually, but just different kinds of coach data we've been looking at. And it kind of breaks out in some patterns that are pretty typical. So we've seen folks who are added to a lot of modules, that's the 4th column, and are using commenting sort of sometimes. Those are the green folks. Now go back. And then in the orange row, you'll see we have some folks who are doing a lot of commenting, tons and tons of commenting, So this person in orange has 13 modules she's been shared on or he's been shared on and 187 comments. So that's a lot of comments if you average that out over the course of those modules. Then in the first yellow row, we have someone who is doing a lot of commenting. You can see the average is pretty high and is also using reviews, is using the public feature as a coach. So we see that in some coach patterns. And then finally, the last row, you'll see this is someone who has many modules shared on, many comments. We don't know how they're distributed, right? It could be lots of comments on some of those. The average is only 1 per module, but so we don't really know. But this person's also using formative reviews, national reviews, and our data analytics, which show teachers' progress through courses. So this is just some of the stuff we've been playing around and talking about in our course. And what was really interesting, if you go to the next slide, is that coaches, and Sherry and Christine, you'll have to see if I get this right, but coaches, when we've had these conversations, are really pretty clear that the things they felt represented their coaching work were the comments and the number of modules that they've been shared on. So that's really interesting to us, because if comments are a really valuable way of giving feedback, we want to know how to make that more useful and to people as you're doing your coaching work. So that's that. Go ahead, Barb. Yeah, so I want to turn this over to Sherry and Christine, who have been with me and trying to think about all these questions. And so we have a couple questions here that we asked them to think and talk about that we'll show while they're talking, and related to how the course has helped them with LDC work, and also how the virtual, how they're thinking about how you could use this virtual work at all, and then how they're thinking about using sort of the course content from our online courses in their work with teachers. So I'll turn it over to you. Sherry, I guess you're on the top of this list, so why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. I will say that the coaching course has been a really interesting experience for a couple of different reasons. And one is kind of like what we're doing right here. It's been really nice. Sometimes the coaching world, which I know all of you probably know, gets somewhat lonely, and you feel like perhaps you're the only one having these problems or experiencing these issues. And to come together with other coaches who are working in some of the same work at the same time is extremely valuable, just to hear that you're not alone in your issues and that there are different ways to handle it that you can share with one another. So that collaboration is extremely valuable. And to see it happening regardless of what area of the country you're in, that there are a lot of similarities in the kinds of things we are dealing with in working with teachers. The content itself, I'd already been through a good bit of the course content in trying to decide whether or not to use to work with my teachers. And it's amazing, though, how every single time I come back into a block of the work for the course that we're doing together, how much more I see every single time I go back in. So I think that that's one of the key pieces for me, is that the content is so rich in every single block of the online course that even though I've been working with this for about 1.5 years now, I can only imagine how much richer it would be for my teachers if I were to break it down a little more for them as we use the course content over this next year. Whereas this first try has been piloting the courses with a group of teachers. And so one of the things that I foresee and would like to do is that we will be having PLCs both online and in person at our schools next year, and using smaller chunks of the course blocks. Suzanne, sort of like you've done with us in having a very specific part of the course to go back and look at in order to inform the conversation for that particular PLC. And the opportunity to choose those blocks based on needs, an individual design based on a school and where they are and what their needs are.
Well, that's super interesting, because you're kind of saying that even though it seems like it's structured like this linear progression of stuff, you you see ways that you can use just bits and pieces as you need them with teachers in your coaching. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And of course, there's great value in choosing to take a course from course 1 to course 2 to course 3. The more I look at it, though, I see the need for such a combination of a variety of ways of accessing the course, and that one time in a lot of these course blocks is not enough. Once you try out a little more, you really should come back to them because they are so content rich. And I have picked up something deeper and more meaningful every single time I've come back to a block and looked at it again.
All right, Christine, let's get you in here. What are you thinking about these questions or about this experience?
No, I agree with a lot of what Sherry was saying. I really like the collaborative aspect of it. I feel like the depth of knowledge from the community of coaches is just such a resource that, you know, every conversation that we have, I learn something and am presented with an idea that I just never would have thought about before. And I think that, you know, as far as the courses, like as I've been thinking about these questions today, and I've been realizing just how my thinking has been so kind of not what, like, I guess when I took the courses, the first course I took it, you know, by myself, and I did have the opportunity to talk to people about it at the end, but I kept, you know, I said throughout the whole thing, I really feel like I would have benefited from collaboration throughout the course. Yet when I was working this year with my teachers, I didn't do that. And, you know, I'm realizing now how valuable that is for teachers, and how, you know, basically what I did was what I would never do in my classroom, you know, to assign a reading and assume that I'm not giving you any support. Well, not any, but, you know, we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I'm not really digging in deep with you, but I'm going to assume that you've understood everything that you've read. And I'm going to talk to you like you understand everything that you've read. And
Christine, there's like 4 people nodding their heads while you're talking. It's hilarious.
realizing, like, oh my, what was I thinking? So that's a huge shift, and I am, you know, as Sherry said, going back in and pulling out little, you know, because, you know, having come to this realization at this point in the year, I'm going to do what I can between now and the end of the school year, and then next year is going to keep it the way I scaffold my coaching. But for now, I'm looking at, okay, where are my teachers as they're going back to design their second module, and what can I pull from the courses to scaffold them in small ways. So that, you know, that's, but the other thing, and then the other part of that is, and I keep bringing it up in the, you know, the comments for the course, is this whole balancing act of how do I support my teachers and push them out of their comfort zone without overwhelming them, and how do I know when, you know, when that happens? Because I think that that's just a huge issue. I think there's just so much intellectual depth to LDC, and you're just not ready to handle all of it right away. And as a coach, it's figuring out, you know, how to walk that line.
Christine, I want to tag off of that because I agree with you completely. And I'll tell you one of the things that I've begun to do just for my own sanity, when you mentioned the intellectual depth that LDC brings to the design of your instruction, even if you've been teaching quite a few years and the teachers not being ready, I've begun a wish list, a dream list of the things that I know my teachers need, but I can't give them all at one time, or I do completely overwhelm them. And I'm working toward choosing a focus or two, sort of like the teacher competencies with LDC. I'm choosing a specific focus for us as a district for next year, instead of trying to do all of it at once. And that has really made it more manageable. And to me, it also focuses where I can come in and help support as well. Because we can't do it all at one time, even though I'd like to.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love that idea of the wish list. I think that's a really great idea. And I actually had just found an article today on virtual coaching, and one of the things that the woman said is she talks about having teachers videotape themselves, and when they share it with you, or that you've discussed prior, like you're going to focus on one aspect of their teaching. So, and I think that's really helpful. Like, how does this mini task, let's look at my skills ladder. Does this mini task relate to my teaching task? Or, is this really this, I'm saying that the standard that I'm dealing with is X. When you look at me teach that mini task, is that really the standard that I'm dealing with, or is it something else? Or whatever, there are so many things you could focus on. But, so I think that, and that's really challenging as a coach, because you're like, oh, but I could help them with this, this, and this. And yeah, you can't right now. Like, let's do one thing and build on it and get that momentum going.
So thank you both for sharing, because I'm sure that people are going to want to talk to you or hear more about your feedback. So for those of you on the call, we're still in the middle of this. We haven't finished. In fact, we have class tonight, so it's very exciting. So we have some questions for you that we're hoping that you're thinking about now as sort of systems leaders, based on what Sherry and Christine are talking about, and that we're really trying to grapple with and provide some resources for. So of course, the first is, how can virtual coaching help you reach more teachers? Because we're all trying to help more teachers. And then the second is, how can the virtual coaching help you get to deeper levels of quality in your LDC work? And you both just described as such an interesting strategy, which is, as a coach, selecting sort of a focus for the work. And what that really means is sort of letting the other things go for a while, right? And you're just going to work on certain things. That's a really interesting strategy. So we hope to keep learning and sharing, and hopefully learning from what everyone's doing in this space. So just so you know, what we'll be able to share at the end of this in May are a bunch of resources if you're interested in doing this kind of thing yourselves. So we'll have a syllabi, we'll have protocols, all the things that we've sort of developed or been developed by the coaches in the course. Learning plans, resources, the article that Christine just referenced, all of those things, we'll be able to share those out with you. And then, if we think that, if you all decide, Sherry, Christine, and everybody, that this is a useful process, I know, for example, that SREB is already thinking about running their own one of these types of courses. And so we'll be thinking about what other supports we can offer you as people start to move more into, not maybe solely virtual, but some kind of hybrid coaching models. So that's it.
I know we're very limited on time. Could I just quickly say, with the coaching course as well, one of the things, and Christine, I think, has an advantage over me in this one, in that before I took that coaching course, I don't do a lot of virtual coaching. I do have the opportunity to go sit side by side, and yet there are becoming times when there's only one of me and a lot of my teachers. So the coaching course has also let me see models of what I can do, and really expanded my knowledge of how I might think through using course material and other options, even Zoom as a video conference option that's so user-friendly and easy to use. So that's another advantage I've had as a coach, is getting to expand my world in how to do this in a lot of different ways to meet as many people as I can.
I'd just like to thank everybody for giving us a window into your experience. As folks are thinking about using the courses, they're thinking a lot about, okay, how do I make sure my coaches have a good experience, so my teachers have a good experience as well, and how can we do this together rather than isolation? I'm going to switch gears in the remainder of our time to piggyback off of the point of some of this professional learning that we're engaging in, these shifts we're engaging in. We're hoping to spread LDC. I think we all, drank the Kool-Aid, see the value in teaching teachers these planning processes, these ways of thinking and engaging their students, And we want to, right now, we have 50,000 teachers that we know of using LDC through core tools, and we know there's lots more out there. We want to reach as many teachers in America as we can, and I know you do too. So as we're thinking about how to build awareness, the courses help us be able to, as Sherry said, there's only one of me, reach more teachers in quality ways. Some other things that we're seeing locally are demonstration days. As our friends at American Reading Company say, seeing is believing. So the opportunity to go on a site visit like Thompson did in March and Stevenson has done is a way to build awareness of LDC. We also are doing a lot of work. I've heard a number of comments from you about ramping up our email campaigns and reaching teachers that way. The recent blogs and news articles are good examples of just positioning LDC. So teachers are bumping and decision makers are running up against LDC in the reading that they're doing, their work in education in general. One of the experiences that I've had recently has been in continuing our partnership. We work with AFT and NEA and other organizations to provide resources to teachers. Last spring we did a webinar where teachers across the country helped share LDC with other teachers who were NEA members. And that led to meeting my colleague and now consider a friend, Melanie Kozlowski, who's the organizational specialist in Maryland and does PD and planning to provide resources to teachers in Maryland. I wanted to have her talk a little bit about how she's supporting teachers in Common Core implementation and how we're integrating LDC into that work. All of you have a local chapter of AFT, MS, NEA, and other organizations that we could be partnering with. I also have provided for you here at the link the resources from the work that we recently did together in Maryland. So welcome, Melanie. I'm going to
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here today. This has been a great partnership. We have been working with NEA, obviously the head as the state affiliate. And what we've been doing is looking at the Common Core, looking at standards, seeing what teachers really needed to move into implementation. And our theme, as you can see, is more from the core. We have really supported this whole idea of the Common Core standards when some folks maybe were a little bit hesitant. We felt that this was really an important move in education for students. It makes a lot of sense to have these standards as an underpinning for the 21st century students. So with MSEA, we have many strategic priorities. One of the ones that, the third one that's listed there that my Office of School Quality deals with is leading the profession. So about 2 years ago, in conjunction with NEA, we created cadres of teachers in all of our counties. We have 23 counties. And we had representatives from the teaching staff that our local affiliates had recommended. And we brought training to them. And at first it was just about the shifts and what that was going to mean for curriculum teaching, all of those basics. And we kept going into a deeper dive. We're a park state. We still are. And many times we would have some experts from Park come out and assist with online sites. but there seemed to be, as we were going into deeper dives, that there was more the need as to how to reach all students. We heard that, we appreciate the fact that districts have very limited resources, whether it's time for professional development or the money for providing the professional development. But as many of you were just discussing, it's also the capacity of the teacher themselves to really absorb all of that information. So we were trying to do it in steps so that we could bring teachers what they needed at that particular time. Last summer and into the fall, what we were hearing is some of our K-2 teachers were not getting as many resources on the standards as they would have liked, and the focus on a lot of district professional development was solely on English classes or math classes, and it was the science and social studies, the PE, the arts, the music teachers who were saying, we really can contribute to looking at text complexity and really having students examine text for what it is and what it's saying and what its purpose is. So we were so delighted to be to talk with Barb and her associates with the LDC, because so much of what you have is rich all across the curriculum, and it really allowed our teachers to look at how to develop lessons in a way that would meet all students' needs. Our latest training, which was in March, and you see the agenda up there, what we were really looking at was talking about bringing access to all students. And many times that is a reference to special needs students or English language learners, but we were saying all students. And so we even talked about how do you bring additional rigor for your gifted and talented, for your advanced placement students. And so having the LDC show the website, have teachers work with it, and I think, Barb, you referred to our secret sauce as the amount of work time that you can see was built into the agenda. There were hours that teachers had to actually work with the both the Literacy Design Collaborative website as well as the Student Achievement Partnerships Achieve the Core website, so that they could really get into it, not just get this surface training, and then, yes, when you go back Monday and you've got a parent standing at your doorstep, I'm sure you'll find the time to really look into it. We know that doesn't happen. So this way we felt that teachers could really get into there, and while the experts were there in the room, ask the questions, how do I find this? Where do I get that? And at the very end on Saturday, the show and tell, I think, was very rich. I don't know how you felt about that, Barb, but
Amazing.
one of the teachers, I even asked if she would do a workshop on time management, because the amount of things that she was able to get done as far as lesson planning and projects and differentiation for various learners in our classroom was absolutely amazing. But I think having Barb and Heather and Patty there to really help the teachers access the site and use the tools the way they're meant to be and explain the rationale for the tools as they were using it was so very incredibly helpful.
Melanie, I would just like to thank you for giving us a taste of this. I think that, again, folks that are interested in learning more about just the way that Melanie set this up, they've got a summer leadership conference. She has a leadership cadre. She calls them her IPD leaders. She's really been very strategic about reaching every local, so basically every school district, and getting teachers who are real decision makers to be supporters of the work. The other things I thought that, Melanie, just from my bird's eye view that were so interesting, one, the balance of presentation to work time. And they actually brought in printers. There were teachers who were so excited to be able to print and have, I mean, literally, you know, we used to kind of look down on things that were make and takey. You know, if you know what I'm talking about, anybody who was a classroom teacher. This was at such a high level. Teachers then were responsible for sharing their plan, and they had enough time to really create something. Also, you provided, they were instructed to bring their curriculum, bring a plan in mind. They came ready to roll. They came with bags of their materials. So they came with a real purpose. One of the things I wanted to just share with everyone was that this is a model that you can take, tweak, and use. The PowerPoints are here. The examples we used, Melanie's agenda. I think the other thing that was really powerful was the combination of working with our professional, state professional organization, working with student achievement partners, a partner of LDC, and then working with all the district teachers and having a teacher. Some of you know Heather Lacey, former Florida teacher, now in Maryland. Having a teacher really helped to present, as well as one of our partners, American Reading Company, the coach. So we really provided a lot of support. So
very much so.
Just super exciting. Wanted everyone to have a model of something they can take and use easily. I'm mindful of our time. There's two important other folks I'd like to talk a little bit today. And really from this point of how are we able to spread LDC, a face-to-face event like the More from the Core can really help you strategically blanket your networks. You know, getting a teacher who's really going to take a deep dive and then go share with 10 or 15 other teachers can really build awareness of LDC and enthusiasm to spread the work further. And we are seeing a lot of power in events. The other thing we're seeing is a lot of power in, as Kelly Galbraith does so artfully, building high quality curriculum examples. And those examples speak for the work. The other thing that Kelly does is has an ever-changing service menu to meet districts' needs. It's not, here's LDC, we're going to do it this way for 10 years. You know, Kelly, I'm just wondering, we're posting this professional development catalog. It's linked in the agenda, and it's also on IU13 partners page. I'm going to pull it up. And also, we just have here on the screen a map of all of the places IU13's Good to Go and exemplary modules have traveled. And I think that speaks for itself. Could you just talk a little bit about how you're thinking about LDC services?
Sure. First of all, I would say that this professional development catalog that we're moving into for the 16-17 school year is a little bit different than what we've done for the past 5 years. And so we really, a couple things prompted that. First of all, we serve a 2-county area with 22 school districts. And we wanted to start to differentiate our professional development. A lot of what we have done in the past is comprehensive module development, where teachers are developing 2 full modules a year and implementing them. And just in our region, it was starting to feel heavy. You know, we have substitute shortages, and you know, professional development time is hard to come by. So we looked at the LDC architecture as sort of a base, you know, seeing how core tools users function. And Terry Lewis and I, my colleague at IU13, we tried to think about how could we develop levels of professional development for LDC that are both lighter than what we've been doing. I think we were mostly functioning at the adventurer level with everything that we were doing, based on what you see on the screen. How do we go deeper with all of the people who sort of have been through, and how do we get them to circle back to us? And how do we help bring people who've never experienced LDC or don't know about LDC? How do we just bring them to the visitor center, so to speak? How do we have some light options for them? So we developed this differentiated PD, and a lot of it is still in development. We're obviously rolling it out next year. But you can see here that these are the different options that we have available to our districts based on the different levels of PD. And we're certainly utilizing LDC's free mini courses on the site as pre-work and as options for our teachers to help increase traffic to ldc.org as well. So I think you know, we have been doing this for 5 years pretty much the same way. And I think we're trying to branch out a little bit and offer various options. We have some teachers who may have gone through training 4 years ago and have never used core tools. We may have teachers who are still using 1.0 rubrics or 2.0 rubrics. You know, like, so I think the goal here was to go deeper with some of the things we're doing. One of the things I'd like to do is, and it's in our catalog, it's in development, is just have some content specific days where we look at, you know, just even one day to pull science teachers together who have already been through training, who've already built modules, just to look at data analysis for a day. And how do we teach that? What does it look like to start bringing in content specific networks focused on LDC? So that's where we're headed.
Kelly, thank you so much. I know that we are short in time, but I know that right now a lot of you are thinking about this and revamping and really contemplating. You're in the same shoes as IU13, whether you're in a 2-county area, a state, or a school district. So I wanted you to have that thinking as you move forward. And again, the contacts, I think that's an important part here, is all the networking that we have today. With us also, when we think again about how to spread LDC and how do we sustain engagement, the national conference, the Southern Region Education Board Conference, is a great opportunity for you to be a part of something bigger. And Connie Lester is here to talk a little bit about the conference this year. I am planning to follow up. All of you have received emails about the Lead and Learn Fellowship, which is a way to elevate teachers in your region and have a travel stipend to bring them teams to the conference and to contribute to the conference. So Connie, could you tell us a little bit about what we can expect at this year's conference?
Yes, be happy to. It's the conference, since we began the networking conference with LDC and MDC, I have found it just an exciting time to be there. It's teachers who are wanting to learn about LDC, teachers who have experience, a couple of years experience, and they share their expertise in a certain area of LDC, school leadership, district leadership, coaches. So it's just, and there's such a great variety of menus for teachers to choose from when they come to the conference to go to sessions that most directly meet their needs. We would love to invite all the partners to submit a proposal. You have wonderful expertise that teachers who are attending would love to take a part, be in your sessions and learn from you. We have a lot of leadership who will bring a team of teachers if they're just becoming interested in LDC as an exploration and to get some foundational knowledge, as well as those who've been. I have one school who this is their 4th year that they have been implementing LDC, but the leadership is, she understands their need to stay current as LDC changes, as the resources improve, and so she brings a team of teachers every year to the conference to learn. So we're short on time, and if you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer those, but we would love to have you on our program and have teachers come learn from you. So I just encourage you to attend, and most importantly, to present with us.
Thank you so much, Connie. And Jennifer and I are happy to also funnel inquiries, questions. I think last year there were about 1,200 people at the conference. Am I right?
Yes.
Somewhere around there. And so many teachers who are new to LDC or school districts, it actually is another good way to deepen their engagement, because sometimes they're surprised by what a large national community they're a part of. And again, it's a really exciting thing for them. Folks, we are very short on time today, but such rich conversation. I'm going to be circling back, and especially with our new team member, Angela, on board next month to give more time to talk about some of the experiments we've been doing and learning with marketing and sales that we think are going to pay big dividends to you. I've heard many comments from you that you're noticing the clean, vibrant nature of the communications you're receiving, the frequency of the partner newsletter, the Core Tools newsletter. I want to just mention for you, I've gotten feedback from several of you who are finding great power in the new PowerPoint that we've provided, and we are trying to provide a lot more collateral to you that has clear messages that really starts with a problem of practice and how LDC can help solve that problem of practice. As you use the materials, we'd love to hear from you. Last month you received a PowerPoint. In the upcoming weeks, you're going to be receiving more resources. And one of the things we're really trying to do is focus on a couple key messages with all the resources. That LDC is an opportunity to focus on key standards. It's easy to use, and it works with other initiatives rather than being an add-on to your work. And with the advent of the teacher competencies as a nice tool, we're really, again, reinforcing that LDC is an investment in teachers and good teaching. I just want to leave you with some links, because if you're like me, I get something and then I can't find it again. We're going to be making these things more visible and connected, but as you are out there recruiting and wanting to speak specifically to ELA teachers, social studies teachers, science teachers, in recent communications, there have been landing pages. I've just assembled them here. Jennifer has also put together just content blurbs that are ready for you for emails where you can share information to get teachers excited, because I know I've heard it from all of you before that when a social studies teacher and ELA teacher sees something that looks like something that's for their classroom, they get excited. Also, just letting you know, as you're sending teachers or principals, as you're sharing LDC with new people, one of the things that's happening when you used to be logged out of Core Tools, you saw Screen A, and then we've made modules public, people were now able to see modules without signing into Core Tools or getting a Core Tools account. But our goal is to get people into the system so they can be part of the community and share in the resources and ideas. So we've just started this really neat little call to action. So one of the things I just want to share with you is lots of little goodies that your teachers are experiencing. Last but not least, I believe I've already sent you, and you're going to see more of the leave behind cards, just like the conference postcard that you're going to be able to use to communicate LDC ideas. And I think the other thing I just wanted to mention that we talked about recently is that we are providing and trying to create greater awareness of LDC through paid ads on LinkedIn, Google, and we're starting on Pinterest, for example. I thought you might like to take a look more in depth later at these idea of messaging for LDC. Here are some of the messages we've tried, some of the evidence we're finding, and again, interestingly and not surprising, quality and utility are really resonating with teachers, and how that translate in terms of the kind of images teachers are seeing, you can see right here. So we are over time, but I want to share with you, again, a big thank you for all of the work that you do. Please feel free to reach out. Much more to come. And please, hope to see you May 5th at our final meeting for the year. The other thing that is on the calendar is May 19th. You'll be receiving information about an optional meeting for coaches and yourself to really do a dive into the rubrics, new PowerPoints, courses, resources that they can use over the summer months and heading into fall professional development. So an optional meeting, just like we did in the fall. I'll blast that out and get more information about that, but we've had some requests that, hey, I'm here on this call, but I really would like to have maybe 15 coaches with me or 3 coaches with me. So we're planning to do that mid-May. All right, so thank you, everybody. I'll stick around as normal for a few more minutes, and thank you all.